So this is the video on the relationship section of your paper 3 exam. So what do you need to know within the relationships topic? You need to be aware of the evolutionary explanations for partner preferences, factors that can affect attraction in romantic relationships, theories of romantic relationships, Duck's model of romantic relationship breakdown, and virtual relationships within social media, including self-disclosure and parasocial relationships. Evolutionary explanations of partner preferences. So sexual selection is the evolution of characteristics that create a reproductive advantage. So that's any traits, behaviours that leads to an individual being able to reproduce. Therefore, those behaviours, traits and characteristics will be passed on to future offspring and future generations. Intrasexual selection is when members of the same sex, typically males, compete with each other in order to gain access to members of the opposite sex. Individuals who are successful and able to mate and reproduce pass on their genes. Therefore, any characteristics that allow them to win, such as strength, size, being cunning, will be passed on to future offspring. Intersexual selection is when members of the same sex evolve with preference for certain qualities in a mate. So members of the opposite sex who have these characteristics will have a mating advantage and pass on their genes. So for example, in mating preferences, by mating with an attractive, high quality mate, offspring are more likely to be of a higher quality and individual genes are more likely to be passed on. So females generally are attracted to males who are able to invest resources in her and her offspring, able to physically protect them and show promise at being a good parent. So why would a woman want these qualities according to an evolutionary point of view? Now, women have a finite number of gamete, so sex cells, and she has a limited amount of chances in when she could become pregnant and carry offspring. So her reproductive advantages are limited. She wants to mate with a male that is going to be of a good quality and a good father because the amount of offspring that she could produce is relatively small in comparison to what a man could reproduce. Whereas men want women that display signs of fertility. So a waist-hip ratio of 0.7, large eyes, big lips, because they're an indication of their reproductive value. They're saying that women will be able to reproduce and carry future offspring. Buss studied over 10,000 people from 37 different cultures and asked them to rate 18 characteristics on how important they were in choosing a mate. Women desired good financial prospects, so resources, or qualities that would lead to future resources, so ambition. Remember, this is because we said that women want men that can provide and look after them and their offspring. Whereas men place more importance on fertility, physical attractiveness and youth. So there are indications that a woman would be able to reproduce and have offspring. So a strength for this is that it was found that female mate choice varied across the menstrual cycle. Women prefer a slightly feminized male face for a long-term relationship. However, during her most fertile stage of her cycle, the preferred face is masculine. So sexual selection may have favoured women who used mixed mating strategies, as she may choose a long-term partner who will care for the offspring and look after them, but also mate with a male who has good genes to pass on. Also, we have supporting evidence from Clark and Hatfield. They conducted research where a confederate, remember someone who's in on the experiment, were instructed to approach both males and female students on a university campus and asked one of 3 questions. The most pertinent question in the research was, "I find you very attractive, would you go to bed with me?" It was found that 75% of males were willing to have sex with a stranger, whereas no females were. Okay, this indicates that both males and females have very different mating strategies and suggests that it could be down to evolutionary explanations. Women have to be a bit more careful about who they mate with because they are going to be the ones that have the offspring, whereas males are more concerned with the quantity of mates typically than the quality of mates. However, a weakness of this explanation is that it is unable to explain homosexual relationships. Evolutionary explanations focus on reproductive success, and as a homosexual relationship serves no reproductive value, this poses a severe problem for evolutionary explanations. Also, Buss's survey lacks validity. It reflects preferences rather than who we actually end up with in real life. It fails to take into account cultural influences. So it's found that women now look for men who are more family orientated, suggesting that resources are no longer an important factor in terms of mate selection. So Buss's research could have been a reflection of the time period it was done in and the socio-economic surroundings. Women are much more able to earn money for themselves now. Okay, factors that affect attraction. So self-disclosure. Self-disclosure involves revealing personal information about yourself. Romantic partners tend to reveal more about their true selves as the relationship develops, and these revelations strengthen the relationship if used appropriately. So social penetration theory is proposed by Altman and Taylor. Relationships are a gradual process of revealing your inner self. In romantic relationships, it involves a reciprocal exchange of information between both of the partners, and it leads to a deeper understanding of each other. When one person reveals information, it shows trust towards the other person, and therefore the other partner must also reveal sensitive information in order for this bond and trust to develop even further. As each partner increasingly reveals more and more information, it is said that they penetrate more deeply into each other's lives, gaining a greater understanding of each other and a deeper connection. As both the breadth and depth increases, the romantic partner becomes more and more committed to one another. There's the distinction between low and high risk information. So low risk information is revealed at the early stages of the relationship. These are things that we would tell work colleagues and to friends, whereas high risk information starts to be revealed at a later stage. So they're painful memories, strong held beliefs and experiences, maybe some attitudes and values. So a strength is that heterosexual dating couples were studied and there was found to be a strong positive correlation between both measures of relationship satisfaction and self-disclosure, both theirs and their partners. However, we could have a counter-argument there that's saying it's only focusing on heterosexual relationships, doesn't necessarily apply to homosexual relationships. It would be a generalisation to apply it. Also, it could be socially sensitive in that it's only focusing on heterosexual. It might have implications for homosexual relationships. Real-life applications, research into self-disclosure can help people who want to improve communication with their relationships and their partners. So Haas and Stafford found that 57% of gay men and women said that open and honest self-disclosure was the main way that they maintain their relationships. So it could lead to guidance and counselling for marriages and relationships. There are cultural differences though, which is a weakness. It was found that research regarding sexual self-disclosure and concluded that men and women in the US, so individualistic cultures, disclose significantly more than men and women in China, collectivist cultures. So it might not offer a universal explanation and it might be culturally biased. Research into self-disclosure is also correlational. Although the research suggests that greater self-disclosure creates greater satisfaction, cause and effects can't be established. It could be that greater satisfaction leads to you disclosing more about yourself. Theories of relationship breakdown often recognise how couples discuss and negotiate the state of their declining relationship. These discussions generally involve deep self-disclosure, and yet the relationship will end in a breakdown, and it might actually be the contribution to a breakdown of relationships. So self-disclosure might not always lead to strengthening a relationship, it could lead to a weakening of the relationship. Physical attractiveness, we need to be aware of the matching hypothesis. This claims that when people look for a partner, they tend to look for someone who is socially desirable and they're approximately equal to their own. So they tend to go for people that are of a similar attractiveness level to themselves or look quite similar to themselves. So Wolster and Wolster state that individuals first assess their own value in the eyes of a potential partner, and then they select the best candidate likely to be attracted to them. By choosing a partner who is similar in attractiveness to them rather than someone out of their league, it maximises their chances of forming a relationship. They refer to these as mate choices as realistic because each person is influenced by the chances of having their affection returned. So generally, it's argued that people often have to settle for mating within their league, even if they want to or not. Because if they went for someone out of their league, they might be rejected and therefore not form a romantic relationship. The halo effect is also an important feature of physical attractiveness. So we tend to judge people on the way they look. Okay, so Dion found that attractive people are consistently rated as kind, strong, sociable and successful compared to unattractive people. The belief that good-looking people probably have these characteristics makes them even more attractive to us. So we behave positively towards them, which might be an example of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So because we believe that they are more successful, more sociable, more competent, we are friendlier towards them, or we might go and offer them more reliability, more jobs to do, more responsibility, which in turn causes them to gain greater skills and qualities, so it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. So a meta-analysis carried out on 17 studies found a significant correlation between ratings of attractiveness between partners. Also, physical attractiveness is consistent across cultures. Cunningham et al. Found that females with large eyes, prominent cheekbones and small noses were rated as highly attractive by white, Hispanic and Asian men. Wheeler and Kim found that Korean and American students judged physical attractive people to be more trustworthy, concerned with other people, mature and friendly. The halo effect is consistent across collectivist and individualistic cultures. However, weaknesses include that Taylor studied the activity logs of a popular online dating site. It was found that online daters want to meet someone who is more attractive than themselves. They don't consider their own attractiveness level when making decisions on who to date. Gender differences found that males place more importance on physical attractiveness in a long-term partner. Objective ratings of wives' attractiveness were positively correlated to a husband's satisfaction in the first 4 years of marriage, whereas wives' satisfaction was not correlated to objective rating of their husband's attractiveness. Also, matching is much more complicated than just physical attractiveness. People offer many desirable characteristics in a relationship, and a person might make up for their lack of attractiveness with their charming personality, kindness, loyalty, etc. So, Sprecher and Hatfield said that people compensate for a lack of physical attractiveness by offering other desirable traits. Filter theory. So filter theory of attraction suggests that we choose romantic partners by using a series of filters that narrows down the field. The theory believes there are different filters are prominent at different stages. So for example, we look at social demography, similarities in our attitudes, and then complementarity. So social demography is the first level of filter. So variables such as age, social background, geographical location determines who we are likely to meet in the first place. Social circumstances reduce the range of people that we are available to meet. We are more likely to come in contact with people from our own ethnic, social and educational groups and those who live close to us. Also, because these are the people we feel similar to, we are more at ease with them, therefore we find them more attractive to begin with. Similarity in attitudes is the second level of filter. Research has found that similarity in attitudes and values of central importance at the start of the relationship and is the best predictor of the relationship becoming stable. Through the disclosures to each other, individuals are able to weigh up their decisions about whether to continue or terminate the relationship. Partners who are very different to the individual in terms of the attitude and values are not considered suitable, and therefore they are filtered out from the field of possible long-term partners. Complementarity. So this is the ability of the romantic partners to meet each other's needs. They complement what the other one lacks. So for example, the need to be caring and the need to be cared for. Kirchhoff and Davis found that the need for complementarity was more important for long-term couples. So it's not saying that opposites necessarily attract, it's rather that in long-term relationship people are attracted to people whose needs are harmonious with their own. So, evaluation. Filter theory has face validity as it states that the key factors in a relationship change over time, which agrees with most people's experiences of a romantic relationship. Supporting evidence, Winch found that similarities of personality, interest and attitudes between partners are typical of the early stages of a relationship. However, many of the studies have failed to replicate the original findings of the filter theory, and it could be down to social changes over time. Also, Anderson et al. Found that romantic partners become more similar over time, emotional convergence. Romantic partners over time bring the attitudes in line with each other as well, so attitude alignment effect. So it's not necessarily that they were similar to begin with, but over time they have become similar. It lacks temporal validity, so the rise of online dating has reduced the importance of the social demographic variable. Internet dating has made it easier to meet people outside of our local area, and people are pursuing dates with someone outside of the demographic limits. Culture bias. Most of the research was performed in individualistic cultures and may not apply to collectivist cultures, where relationships are affected by different factors. Social exchange theory. This is the likelihood that a person stays in a relationship is determined by the assessment of what they get out of the relationships compared to what they put into it. So it's an economic theory. This is the theories of romantic relationships. So profit and loss. It assumes that all social behaviour is a series of exchanges, and individuals try to maximise their profit, their rewards, and minimise any losses, the cost of the relationship. People exchange resources with the expectation that they will earn a profit, so the rewards will exceed any of the costs that they put in. Rewards that people may receive from a relationship could include being cared for, companionship, sex, etc., whereas costs could include effort, financial investment, time wasted. Rewards minus the cost equals outcome, so is it a profit or a loss? The commitment to the relationship is dependent on the profitability of the outcome. Comparison level. We develop a standard in which we compare all our relationships against. It is formed based on our experiences with our views of what we expect. If we judge the potential profit of a new relationship to exceed our comparison level, the relationship will be seen as worthwhile and the person will be seen as an attractive partner. If the outcome is negative, so profit is less than the comparison level, we will be dissatisfied in the relationship and the person will be seen as less attractive. There's also comparison levels for alternatives. A person weighs up the potential increase in rewards from a new partner, minus any costs of ending the relationship. A new relationship can take place if the current one profit level is significantly higher. So we deem that the alternative will produce a better profit. An individual will be committed to the current relationship when the overall benefits and costs are seen as being greater than the alternative. So the profits in the current relationship are better than the alternative. So there's some real world applications. Unsuccessful marriages report a lack of positive behavioural exchanges with their partners. An integrated behavioural couples therapy helps partners to break this negative pattern with each other that causes problems, making them happier. Also, participants were asked to complete a questionnaire over a 7-month period concerning the rewards and costs of the relationship, and it showed that set social exchange theory didn't explain the early phases, but it did apply to the maintenance of the relationship, so it does explain long-term relationships. There's culture bias though, only be that it might apply to individualistic cultures, who generally are characterised by more individual concerns. So it was argued that such economic theories only apply to Western relationships, and more short-term relationships is the more relevance in being concerned with give and take. Long-term relationships, however, are more likely to value security over profit. Mills and Clark identified two intimate relationship types: the communal couple, each partner gives out of concern for the other, and B, the exchange couple. Each partner keeps a mental record of who's ahead and who's behind, who's in profit and who's in a cost. The different types of relationships suggest that social exchange theory can't be applied to all relationships. Equity theory, so Walster et al. Says that people's attempts to achieve fairness in their relationship. So it's not to do with being equal, it's to do with being fair. Any kind of inequity can make people feel distressed. Inequitable relationships exist when a person feels they give a great deal in a relationship and get little in return, or they receive a great deal and give little in return. The assumptions of equity theory are that people are most comfortable when they perceive that they are getting roughly what they deserve. If people feel over-benefited, so they get more than what they put in, they may experience pity, guilt, or shame. If people feel under-benefit, they may experience anger, sadness, or resentment. The greater the inequity, the greater the dissatisfaction. Equity is about the fairness. It's not the size or the amount of the rewards, it's the ratio between the two of them that's important. If a partner puts in a lot into a relationship but then also receives a lot, they'd be considered fair and equitable. Consequences of inequity then. An individual can change their perceptions of the rewards and costs, so the relationship feels more equitable to them, even if nothing changes. Or they could confront the inequity. The under-benefited partner will work hard to make the relationship more fair, if they believe it's possible to save the relationship. The greater the inequity to begin with, the greater the amount of work that is required. So, a survey of 118 recently married couples measuring inequity in the 2-year self-report scales. Husbands and wives were aged between 16 and 45 years. They had all been together for more than 2 years before marrying. Research found that couples considered their relationship equitable were more satisfied than those who saw themselves as over-benefiting or under-benefiting. However, weaknesses include the found equity did not increase in dating couples. They found equity did not distinguish between those relationships which had ended and those which continued. Rather, the factors were seen as being significantly more important. So, a factor that is more important is self-disclosure, so it doesn't seem to really play that much in a relationship. Also, there's gender differences. So women tend to perceive themselves as more over-benefited and less under-benefited in a relationship compared to men. It does not apply to all cultures. So US students prefer equity, European students tend to prefer equality, and it can't establish causality. So it's argued that in relationships, couples do not tend to think in terms of rewards and equity. However, she claims that it's a sign of when the marriage is in trouble if they start to think like that. So the investment model. This builds on social exchange theory by adding a new component of investment, and it suggests that there are 3 factors that affect the quality or the satisfaction and commitment of a relationship. So satisfaction, quality of alternatives, and investment. And a happy relationship or a committed relationship is one where partners are getting more out of the relationship than the others and is a mixture of all 3 components. So investments are the resources that are associated with the relationships and any of those resources that would be lost if the relationship ended. We'll look at those in a bit more detail later. Satisfaction is the extent to which the other person or your partner fills the individual's needs. And quality of alternatives is the extent to which the individual's needs would be better fulfilled outside of the current relationship. So that could be in a new relationship with a new partner, or it could be not being in a relationship at all. Rosbolt argued that there are 2 types of investment, intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic are things that we put directly into the relationship. So they could be tangible things such as money and possessions, or they could be resources that you can't quantify, so intangible such as energy, emotion, and self-disclosures. extrinsic investments are resources that weren't previously part of the relationship but are now associated with it. So they could be possessions bought together, so a car or a house, or it could be mutual friends that have been acquired during the relationship. It could be having pets, or it could be children that have been produced via that relationship. Now, commitment is a combination of the satisfaction, quality of alternatives, and investment. And it said that commitment is more important than satisfaction. So it could explain why dissatisfied partners stay in a relationship that they're not happy with. Okay? So it could be because they've invested a lot and they feel that the quality of alternatives isn't there, but they're not satisfied, but they are still committed to the relationship. So we've got supporting evidence from a meta-analysis. It was found that satisfaction with your partner, alternatives to the relationship, and investments in a relationship were each significantly correlated with the commitment to that relationship, supporting the components of the model and the claims of the model. It can also help us to explain abusive relationships, in particular intimate partner violence. So Resbolt and Martz applied the investment model to abusive relationship. They asked women living in refuge why they stayed with their abusive partners instead of leaving them, and as predicted by the model, the women who felt the greatest commitment to their relationship was when their economic alternatives were poor and the investment was great. So they weren't satisfied, but the other two components were high. So they had no quality of alternatives and the investment was high. So that's why they were committed to the relationship. Also, much of the evidence relies on self-report measures. Now, normally we say that that's a weakness. However, this model relies on the perceptions of your quality of alternatives, satisfaction, and investment. So it is your belief that you've made a big investment in your current relationship, or your belief that you have no attractive alternatives, that will influence your commitment. So remember, it's to do with the individual's perceptions, which is a strength there. However, it is based on correlational research. It could be that the more committed you feel towards your partner, the more investments that you put into that relationship. So the direction of causality could be the reverse of what the model predicts. So it's not that you've invested a lot that you feel committed, it's because you feel committed that you have invested a lot into the relationship. Also, it oversimplifies investment. So Goodfriend and Agnew says that there are more to investment than just the resources that you have put into the relationship. They extend to the idea that the investments that the partners make in the future. So they've talked about their plans for the future and they want to be committed for those to work out. Okay, now we're moving on to the breakdown of relationships, and we need to be aware about Duck's phase model. So Duck argued that the ending of a relationship is not a one-off event, but it goes through a process that takes time, and it goes through 4 main stages. Okay, so we have the breakdown, so that's where it starts. One partner becomes distressed with the way the relationship is going, and when they realise that they are no longer able to stand the dissatisfaction, the individual takes the first steps into the breakdown of the relationship. Then we go through these 4 phases. So we have the intrapsychic phase, which is characterised by negativity and the thought that they might be better off in the relationship. However, individuals don't express their dissatisfaction publicly, but in other ways. So social withdrawal. So they might not tell their partner yet that they're dissatisfied with the relationship, but there could be non-verbal communication that they aren't happy. The dyadic phase, the individuals confront their partners and begin to discuss their feelings about their discontent. So the feelings of guilt and anger surface, and their partner may also share their concerns about the relationship. Now, the relationship could be saved at this stage if both partners are motivated to do so, so they could go to couples therapy. Social phase is when the dissatisfaction is made public to friends and family. Now, others here might provide advice and support, and that could help save the relationship. However, other people could also speed the break up by making revelations about the partner. The final phase is grave dressing phase, and this is where the person attempts to justify their actions. They also portray themselves in a good light, so they appear trustworthy and loyal. So they create their own version of the relationship about why it ended. So a strength is there are practical applications, is help people to reverse the process of the breakdown. So if the relationship is at the intrapsychic phase, repair could involve re-evaluating the partner in a more positive light, help with couple therapy, help with marriage counselling. Okay, if it's in the social phase, friends and families might be able to help the couple work together and reverse the process and strengthen the relationship. Also, there's been evidence that suggests there is the importance of the grave dressing phase. So it was found that individuals who feel better about themselves when they focus on the situation, not their flaws. So the grave dressing phase could affect psychological well-being. Other research has suggested that if individuals spend too long focusing on the flaws that they had during the relationship, so they're not creating a positive light of the grave dressing phase, they were more likely to develop depression. However, Duck's model may only be a relevant description of the breakdown of relationship. It doesn't explain what leads to the breakdown, and other models of the relationships that we've discussed earlier may help to explain why the relationship breaks down in the first place. So it could be that profit and loss, you feel that you are putting in too much into the relationship and not getting enough back, so you're at a loss. It could be that you don't feel that your relationship is equitable. Also, Duck and Rowley added a fifth stage to the model, the resurrection phase, where people take the experiences and knowledge gained from the previous relationship and apply it to future relationships. And when they revisited the model, they also emphasised the progression from one stage to the next is not inevitable, and effective interventions can help prevent this. So the old model might not offer a true representation of the breakdown of a relationship. So self-disclosure on social media. So the broadcasting of self-disclosure states there's a difference in which we share the information we share with a romantic partner and the information we share in public. Generally, when we self-disclose in public, we present an edited version of ourselves, and people select information that is less private and less intimate. Whereas, when we are secure and we feel the information is private, we will share more personal and sensitive information. However, it's been found that people will disclose on the internet, so we're going to look at this in a bit more detail. Generally, we don't self-disclose until we're confident that the information will be confidential, so no one's going to pass on the information we tell them. In face-to-face interactions, confidentiality might be ignored, so the person might go and tell someone, or we might get a negative response from the person. However, the anonymity of the internet reduces that risk. People can share their thoughts without the fear of disapproval. So therefore, Rubin said that we are more likely to disclose personal information to people that we don't know and will probably never see again, because they're not going to have access to our friendship groups, and the confidentiality problem is less of an issue. Also, they can't see us, we remain faceless. We don't know if they have disapproved of that information. Also, absence of gating can have an impact on why we might disclose on the internet. So in face-to-face relationships, personal factors such as physical appearance determine who we will approach and who we form relationships with. To think of the matching hypothesis. We use available features to categorise potential partners before making a decision about whether we would like to have a relationship with that person. However, in online relationships, there's an absence of those features that would normally limit the opportunities of less attractive, shy, or less socially skilled people to form a relationship with face-to-face encounters. So the consequences of this absence of gating is that by removing the traditional gating features, the person's true self is likely to be more active on the internet than in face-to-face interactions. Online social networks empower gated individuals to present identities that they are unable to do in face-to-face situations, and the reduction of obstacles enables people to stretch the truth a little bit and their efforts to project themselves in a more socially desirable light than their real offline identity. So we have some strengths and weaknesses. Baker and Oswald surveyed 207 students about their shyness, their Facebook usage, and the quality of their friendship. Students who scored high on the shyness, greater use of Facebook was associated with a higher perception of friendship quality. So it can have positive impacts on people that are shy. Rosenfeld and Thomas found that people with internet access are more likely to be partnered, even after controlling for other important variables. Those with internet access were still almost twice as likely to have a partner compared to those without an internet access. Tammy and Mitchell found evidence for a biological basis for motivation of self-disclosure on social media. They found an increase in MRI activity in brain regions that were associated with the reward, and those areas were activated when people were talking about themselves compared to when they were talking about someone else. So it could be rewarding for us to disclose on the internet, could become slightly addictive if we become used to those rewards. And McKenna and Barr looked at the computer-mediated communication used by lonely and socially anxious people, and they found that such people were able to express their true selves more than they were in real life. And of the relationships that started online, 70% of them survived for more than 2 years, which is a strength of relationships and online relationships. However, self-disclosure online is not a universal behaviour. It is dependent on the type of site being used. People disclose more in their Facebook status update compared to completing an online e-commerce web form. So they were reluctant to give information out that they considered to be private, that they felt would be in a public domain. Whereas on Facebook you could control who has access to the information by the use of privacy settings. Now, parasocial relationships. So parasocial relationships are described as one-sided. So Horton and Wold defined them as relationships where the fan is extremely invested in the relationships, but the celebrity is unaware of their existence. Parasocial relationships may occur with any dynamic that elevates someone above the population in a community, making it difficult for genuine interaction. This could be anyone from fictitious characters, celebrities, or to teachers. Now, there are 3 levels of parasocial relationships. You need to be aware about the levels because it's mentioned on the specification specifically. We have entertainment social. Is the least extreme relationship type. The person sees the celebrity as a source of entertainment and may speak about them often with like-minded friends. Examples could be discussion about soap operas or reality TV stars. Intense personal relationships occurs when people connect aspects of the celebrity with their own identity. They may have strong feelings that they should have a real-life relationship with the celebrity and believe they share a kinship, so they share same attitudes and values, that they would be friends in real life or they'd have a relationship in real life. The deepest level, or the more extensive level, is the borderline pathological relationship, and they are used to describe the actions of someone who displays obsessive behaviours relating to a celebrity. They might invest a large number of resources in meeting or attempting to befriend the celebrity, so for example by sending them personal gifts, letters, etc. Now, attachment theory could help explain why parasocial relationships develop, and it's believed that insecure attachments are more likely to form parasocial relationships, and the motivation behind it is dependent on the kind of insecure attachment type they have. So it's believed those who had an insecure resistant attachment are drawn to parasocial relationships because they don't offer the threat of rejection or abandonment. There are 3 key behaviours. So proximity seeking, the individual will attempt to reduce the distance between themselves and their attachment figure. For example, they keep up to date with the latest news on the celebrity. Secure base, the presence of the attachment figure provides a sense of security for the individual. And protest at disruption, if the attachment figure, so the celebrity, is taken away from the individual, they will show signs of distress. The absorption addiction model, so McCutcheon proposed or stated that parasocial relationships form due to deficiencies in a person's life, and they look to the relationship to escape from reality due to either traumatic events, or they fill a gap left by a real life attachment ending, so a relationship ending in real life. Absorption part of the model refers to behaviours designed to make the person feel closer to the celebrity. It could be anything from researching facts about them, making their personal life and their careers, to repeatedly experiencing their work, playing their music, buying tickets to see them live, paying for their merchandise to strengthen the apparent relationship they have. And the addiction part refers to the escalation of the behaviour to sustain and strengthen that attachment they have, that relationship. The person starts to believe that the need of the celebrity and behaviours become more extreme and more delusional. So stalking would be a severe example of this. So strengths are that Maltby used the Eysenck personality questionnaire to assess the relationships of parasocial relationships and personality. It was found that intense personal was linked to neuroticism, so tense, emotional and moody, and borderline pathological was linked to psychotic personality traits. So parasocial relationships are linked to mental health problems or mental health issues. Cultural influences. So researchers have identified a tendency for some people to form parasocial relationships with Harry Potter. It was reported that it's not down to a specific culture. So using an online questionnaire, they found similar levels of parasocial relationships to Harry Potter in individualistic cultures, so Germany, and in collectivist cultures, Mexico. So it seems to be a universal trait. We had a meta-analysis found that people with higher levels of parasocial relationships watch more TV, and a positive relationship between the degree in which a person thinks the TV character are real and their tendency to form a parasocial relationship. So that strengthens the model's claims. However, McCutcheon measured the attachment styles and the celebrities' rated attitudes in 299 participants, and the researchers found that participants with insecure attachments were no more likely to form parasocial relationships with celebrities than participants with secure attachments. So that goes against the model's claims that insecure attachment are more likely to form parasocial relationships. Also, there are methodological issues. The use of questionnaires, we could have social desirability bias, which could reduce the validity. Also, the correlational aspect of the research, we can't establish cause and effect.